Education piece was important because and one of the things he said to me is that, Harry, you need to go and get all of these degrees because you don't ever want an organization to say you didn't get the job for any other reason, right? You don't want your education to be the reason you don't get a job. Yeah. Classes are small. We know you by your name. We communicate, professors and staff, we communicate all the time. And so this LR experience is, for me, and as I talk to alum who have gone out and either gone to grad school or going to the workforce, they say to me all the time, there's no place like LR. Give it your all and always remember the why you're doing it.
What's up, guys? Lift and Love. Lift and Love here. Where did you pull this question from? Lift Love, crochet, we out. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Lifting Love podcast. You are awesome. And before we start, just want to shout out our sponsor today. Usually there's a sign up there, but there's not because of all the Christmas stuff. Lake Hickory Pub and Marina, where lake and life meet. Just want to thank them for allowing us to film here at the incredible Lake Hickory Pub and Marina. But today's guest, I have a little introduction. Today's guest is the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students at Lenoir-Rhyne University. It is Dr. Harry Titus. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
Of course, we got a little applause button. There we go. So again, just want to thank you for being on. After going through all the stuff that you do, or all the stuff that you have done, so many avenues and the questions I have. But really, like, for the people who might not know you, who are you and what do you do?
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So I like to tell folks that, I am really a country guy from South Carolina. I grew up in a small town called Maysville, South Carolina. Maybe 600 people on a good census year that live in Maysville. No stoplights, right? But what I tell people, it's a small town, but the small town had a lot of love. And so I grew up around just a ton of loving folks. I'm the youngest of 6 siblings. And then I'm a first-generation college graduate, so out of all 6 of my siblings, I'm the only to graduate from a 4-year college.
Wow.
Which is how what sort of got me into the work that I do now.
Yeah.
I spent my time at Coastal Carolina University in undergrad, which I loved. Then I went to Gardner-Webb for my doctorate of education in organizational leadership. And after that, my career kind of sort of been a little bit everywhere, but it's been really fun and exciting. And now it's led me to Hickory for the past 2.5 years at Lenoir-Rhyne.
So I'm curious, was that something that motivated you? Like, no one else in your family went, but like, was that something you kind of knew from the get-go when you were younger? I'm going to school, I want to get degrees. Maybe you didn't know doctorate and all the things you did, but you definitely knew you wanted to go to school?
No.
Really?
No. Growing up in a small town, college didn't seem attainable, right? But I think 11th grade is when someone at my church told me that I should go to college.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And I Googled, this was 11th grade me, so don't hold this to me. The best party school in South Carolina is what I Googled. I did. And Coastal Carolina came up, and I went to Coastal, and that was one of the best experiences of my life.
A lot of partying?
I did not party a ton. I will say it was Google did steer me wrong just a little bit.
That was a really good PR answer.
Sure, though, it did. Google steered me wrong just a little bit, but I will say though that experience changed my life.
Wow.
And it was not just the school, but it was the people. And so I met some of the best people. I met my mentor there, who really changed my trajectory of my career path.
That's awesome, and I think it kind of goes without saying, but I feel like people is a huge part of everyone's journey. Like the people, the environment, the atmospheres you're in, it allows you to grow, right?
Yes.
Like it's like a seed. If it's a rough environment, an atmosphere, that the seed can't grow.
Absolutely.
And you can't reach your fullest potential. So going back, it's funny. I always want to ask this question to anyone I call it public service. I know most people think of like cop and firefighter and armed services, but like you're in the public service field. Did you always have a heart for people, or did that kind of come when you went to college?
No, I think I've always had a heart for people, and that started growing up, right? My mom, my godmom, my grandparents had me serving at soup kitchens and food banks as a kid. Service was always a part of it was embedded in my family, the culture that I grew up in. You know, we were always taught as kids, right? We may not have a lot, but what we have, you know, is, you know, more than some others, and what we don't need, we need to help and give to others. And so that's something that was embedded in our lives as a kid. And so helping others was always important. And so I always knew I would be in a helping profession or service-based profession. I just didn't know that it would be higher ed.
Yeah. Is it? Do you look back now sometimes at your childhood and growing up like, dang, I really was set up for success?
Absolutely. You know, even though there wasn't a roadmap for college for me, there was always a roadmap for service. And it was just, again, it was embedded into our family. And as a kid, right, I'd rather sometimes on Saturdays being outside playing basketball with my friends. But I'm so grateful that I was, you know, sort of pulled and tugged to, you know, helping at the food bank or, you know, helping in my church or whatever that may be. I'm grateful for those experiences because I think it nurtured a heart of service for me. And I think that servant heart now really carries me and really guides and sustains the work that I do now.
So curious, when you did find out that Coastal was the place you're going, what were you going to study? Like, did you have a roadmap at that time, or did you kind of figure it out along the way?
Yeah, no, I started actually as an elementary education major. Because I was like, I had some great teachers and I'll just go be a teacher, right? That sounded like, again, it was service, it was giving back. And I said, well, I'll go be a teacher. And then at one point I toyed with the idea of going to law school and becoming like a prosecutor, right? Again, service, right?
You honestly give off lawyer vibes.
You really do. I'll take it.
You really do.
So,
Because you're always dressed to the nines. You know what I mean?
I appreciate it. But my first semester, I met my dean of students. In undergrad. I was actually, like a lot of first generation students, I didn't feel like I fit in college. It wasn't for me. So I was actually headed to leave. So I was going to drop out and go get a job. And on my way to the registrar's office to fill out the paperwork, I ran into my dean of students. And he was like, where are you headed? This is a true story. He said, where are you headed? I said, I'm leaving, man. This is not the place for me. He said, just give me 2 hours. So we went in his office. We met for 2 hours. And that 2-hour conversation changed my life. And I left that conversation and said, I don't really know what his job is, what it means, or what schooling he did, but I want to do that. The way he made me feel in this moment, I want to be able to do that thing.
Wow.
And that changed my entire career trajectory.
I'm genuinely curious. Yeah. Have you ever thought, if you never ran into him, what life would look like? What would it look like?
I don't know. I probably would have left. I probably would have either went in the military or went back home and got a job. And I probably would have been okay, but I don't know if I would have been fulfilled. Because I think that I knew I had a calling towards service, but college at that time just didn't seem like it was possible. I didn't feel like I fit in. Most of my friends were, they had family members that go to college and all those things. So they had a sort of a playbook. And I was just flying blind, right? Trying to figure it out.
So it was more like, not that you didn't fit in, but more that you just didn't have like a plan? Or was it kind of a mixture of both?
I think a mixture of both, right? I had friends, I was involved, so that wasn't an issue. But I think that I didn't see the end goal because there was no one ahead of me to show me what the outcome would be. And so I said, well, I know what going in the military would look like. My older sister went in the military, right? I know what getting a really good, planting job with benefits looked like. Most of my family did that, right? And they were doing okay. But so I saw those things, right? But I think college just I didn't see the end goal. And so I was grateful to meet him, and then to be guided through that journey was important. Then he actually gave me my first job in higher ed.
That's incredible. So you sit down and have this conversation. In your head, you're like, I'm gone. Like, this is it. And the fact that you're doing the job that literally like kept you on the college path is insane.
It is.
I think I believe everything happens for a reason. I believe everything happens how it should. God, higher power, whatever you want to call it. Like that just seems like fate.
Yeah, that was my God moment. I'll tell you that was the moment that I said, okay, whatever this means, I'm supposed to be here. And he gave me a task that he gave a lot of students, and he asked me to go back to my dorm room and write a letter, a wide letter is what he called it. And I know so many students of his time that he had write this letter, and it was around why do you want to be here, what you want your legacy to be, all these things.
Yeah.
And Twitter was very popular at the time, and I remember it was just becoming popular, I should say. And I remember going back to my room, and I didn't write it immediately, and then I got a tweet from him. And he tweeted me and said, "Where's that why letter?" And I remember saying, "Okay, I need to write this letter," and I'm so glad I did. And again, that it was reflective. It was very reflective. It made me reflect on who I wanted to be. And I remember writing that letter. I want to do whatever that thing is that he's doing because the impact of what it had on me was just incredible. So yeah, that's how higher ed became a thing.
That's incredible. So what did the route look like as far as what you knew? And did you go above and beyond that? Or did you kind of do exactly what the path was?
No, it still looked, I don't believe in linear paths, right? I think that, as I think about my career and my life, it's just kind of it's just like paint splattered everywhere.
Yeah.
Because I'm a curious person by nature. And so I enjoy the idea of trying things out. And so I still wasn't convinced of how to get there. And so I didn't change my major until the end of my junior year. Going into my senior year. Because I waited so late, I changed my major to interdisciplinary studies, which was really just this thing of you want a college degree, you get to kind of create your own. And then I had an internship at the solicitor's office or the prosecutor's office in town. I was doing an internship there. Because I still had an idea that I would go to law school now and not be a teacher. And so I did my internship there. Then they actually hired me on full time. Right out of undergrad, and I did that for about 10 months before I got the call from my dean of students and one of his staff members invited me to come back and work at the school. So
I think it's so funny how, like you said, there is no linear path. Everyone's path is so different, but it's so interesting that you got to live through that, and now you're in the position to also help students like that dean did for you.
Absolutely.
And no one has the quote unquote successful path.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like high school, college. Hey, I know, or coming out of high school and going into college, I know exactly what I'm going to do.
Absolutely.
You have some people, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a nurse, and they just stick with it I have a buddy who did 13 years of school. He knew he was going to do it, but I've had other friends who, one of my other best friends, he literally went into IT, and now he's doing to become a NP.
Yes.
Completely different career paths. What do you think, for your perspective, and I'm the only one who could talk on perspective, and as your experience personally, what do you think it took besides him? And I think that played a big part, but being lost, how at that point before you met him were you kind of figuring out and kind of relating it to students now who seem lost or trying to figure out what they did? Were you trying different things? Were you having different experiences, being in different clubs?
Yes.
What were you doing to really try to find yourself before meeting him?
Absolutely. I think that exactly what you just mentioned, right? I was heavily involved as a student, and so I was able to really lean on the out-of-classroom experience to really support me through my sort of journey of trying to, figure out what I wanted to do, right? As I was navigating sort of this quest of who do I want to be? What do I want to be? The out-of-classroom experience really sustains me and held me close to the people in the institution. So being involved in clubs, being involved in organizations that I believed in as a student at the time, was a huge part of kind of sustaining me at the institution, and that kept me connected in a way that is so important. And that's why I tell people all the time, in order to be truly a well-rounded student, you can't just, I don't believe, just the in-class experience helps you get there. And so it's all about also being a well-rounded student and being involved. And I believe that's why I believe so much in the out-of-classroom experience being equally as important as what you get in the classroom, right? Because I think about LR, for example, LR, and that's why I think LR is special too, in the way that it is small, where we do provide both of those really cool in-class and out-of-classroom experiences. And so we know our students are going to get a great degree. We have great professors, but it's about what's happening the other 80% of their time, right? And so the student experience outside of the classroom helped me, and I think it helps a lot of our students really just find their path.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when for me, like when I meet other entrepreneurs, or like for you, when you meet coworkers, and then that one time you go out to a bar and you hang out, it like changes your perspective on who this person is. You think they're uptight or they're this or they're that, and then you go out and they're cool as heck, and you're like, oh, we can be friends. It's like very similar to that, except in your career path where you meet other people with different perspective. Like I went to a community college, and in that community college, they had like 50 different groups, 50 different clubs, intramural sports. Like you can be so well connected. So going back, now you're working under the dean. Was it an internship or actual job?
It was an actual first-time job.
That's
so
awesome.
It was my first full-time job, second full-time job, but first one in higher ed. And it was a coordinator position, which was great. So I got to really be a sponge. Not only learn from him, but the assistant dean at the time who was my supervisor, learned a ton from her. Sarah Peacock is her name, and she was just one of the best supervisors I've ever had in my career. And so learning under the two of them was and I was a sponge. Like I wanted to go to all the meetings with them. I wanted to just sit in and listen. And I would watch how they worked with students. I would watch how they were in meetings. I would watch how they connected with campus partners across the university. And so I started picking up on ways they were doing that and really kind of molding that into my own style, and with the style that I have now. And so it was just really taking on that first job, being a sponge, listening a lot, speaking a little, just to take on as much as I could, and it was great.
Did it make you kind of double down? Like, obviously, when you met him, you were like, I want to do what that guy does. But then you got to kind of see it. Then was it really like, this is the confirmation I needed that this is what I want to do?
Yeah, eventually. I think at first it almost made me run from it because I think the job of a dean of students is so complex.
For sure.
And I think oftentimes on the surface, all I got to see from that job was how he helped students, right? I saw him out, he was outgoing, like I just saw him helping, right? And then when I started seeing the work that was happening behind the scenes, the amount of administrative work, the 2-3 a.m. phone calls, the reporting to the hospital, the responding to natural disasters and crises on the campus, I was like, whoa, I don't know if I want to do all of that part of it, right? But what I then saw in all of those situations is that he still cared about students through 2 a.m., whether it was 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 3 p.m., responding to some very serious situations. Students was always at the core. Yeah. And so I said, well, he's figured out how to make sure students are never forgotten in any of that. And I think I can still do that, right? And so even though it was frightening at first as I saw him do it, I was like, I want to do that, right? And so when I finally outwardly said to him, I want to be a dean of students, it's really when we began to be more intentional on my career path, which was great.
That's awesome. And then so where do you go from there? Like, I know you have multiple other degrees. So you went on to get your master's. You went on to get your doctorate. So what did that journey look like? And was that for you more just wanting to be that sponge and really gain as much as you can from college? Or was that really the path to become dean of students?
Yeah, I think the education piece was important because and one of the things he said to me is that, Harry, you need to go and get all of these degrees because you don't ever want in organizations to say you didn't get the job for any other reason, right? You don't want your education to be the reason you don't get a job, right? And so I did it fairly fast. Like I went to school for 10 years, like right from undergrad to my doctorate and straight through. I took maybe a semester or two off here or there, and so that was important to me, is to perfect my craft in what I do and build the capacity and the experiences while also ensuring that I had the education to ensure that when I apply for a job or when I walk in a space, my education would never be the reason I don't get a seat at the table, right?
Can I just say that is an amazing perspective to have. Like, oh, hey, like we love you, you're incredible, you're this, you're that, but you don't have the education. That's kind of a really good perspective.
Yeah. And that he gave me that very early, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to ensure that I get that. And for me, working in higher ed was a benefit because, like, getting my master's, I was able to get it for free because I worked at the institution where I got my master's degree from. Now, the doctor's a little different. I had to pay for that one. But it's okay. But it was important. And I started my doctorate a little before COVID, and not knowing that the world would change, right?
Completely, yeah.
And so that journey started. I'm actually, and again, I believe in divine timing. And so it was such a great distraction for me during the complexity of COVID to have something else to look forward to and do outside of my job.
Yeah.
And so it was great timing even for that. Even though things went online, it was still just great timing to work towards it.
I think it's actually an awesome experience because you got to experience what the kids now in your position
Absolutely.
had to do in high school.
Absolutely.
You know, and you know what I'm saying? So like you got the opportunity to be like, hey, like I understand it's frustrating. I understand this, but like I also went through that.
Yes.
And I think some of the best leaders are those who either are willing, like a basketball coach, to do the drills with you, run with you, do all the
Yes.
things that suck, quite frankly, or also the people who have gone through it.
Absolutely.
Right? So like even going back to coaching, right? The best coaches are usually not only are they potentially former players, but people who have done what you're doing or are willing to at least, hey, I'll put these shoes on right now. We can go, right?
Seriously, yeah.
So being in that position to be in front of students where they're like, man, but like you don't understand these online classes. Whoa.
Yeah.
I did that, you know, during
Absolutely.
COVID. Like, did you understand did you get the appreciation for it then, or did it kind of come after? Because I mean, obviously, COVID was complex in a lot of different ways, and from a learning perspective, some people just, quite frankly, don't learn like virtually. Like it just doesn't
Absolutely.
absorb until like you're sitting in a classroom and like you have someone in front of you teaching you handouts, all the good stuff. Did you have an appreciation for it at the time, or did it come after?
I definitely think it helped guide how I was advocating for students during COVID, right? And so some of the things I was requesting that we as a university do to support students, because I was living it right with them through a doctoral journey, and so absolutely it not necessarily appreciation, but I think it gave me another avenue of advocacy for our students, and so I was able to say, hey, look, I think maybe we should do this thing, or maybe we should have multiple options for students, or whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Because I was living it, right, and I was watching how my professors in my program, how they were navigating things. So it allowed me also to give insight and input to the university as we were making decisions on how to support students, and so it was helpful.
That's awesome. Looking back at your doctorate, do you ever think that you would have, like, if you would have, you could have probably told yourself a million different scenarios as a kid. Was any one of those, I'm going to have a doctorate?
No, not at all. I mean, no, I think for me, like, you know, it was kind of like, all right, I got a bachelor's degree. That's a huge win.
Yeah.
I'm good, right? And then it was like, oh, you can get a master's degree. And it was like every step I was like, I think I can do a little bit more, right? I am a little smarter than I thought I was, right? And that's how I felt, right? And the other thing that was really helpful, even though my parents and my godmom and my siblings and my community did not have, a lot of us didn't have that experience, they were my biggest champions through the whole process, right? And
That's
so
awesome.
every step of the way, they were cheering me on, right? They were supporting me. And I think having that support made it a little more attainable, made it a little less burdensome, where I was like, okay, like I have my family, I have my friends, I have my community who's behind me. And so it was helpful to have that, but it was also, that was a heavy burden to carry, right? Failure just didn't seem like an option for me because so many people were looking at me to be successful and to attain those goals. And so it was great motivation, but it was scary at the same time.
100%. If you could go back into the shoes of being a student, what was your favorite and least favorite thing about all your adventures in throughout college?
Oh, I love being a student. First of all,
That's
once
awesome.
I believe in being a lifelong learner, and so I'm always learning something new now. And especially the work that I do, I think being a student of the game is important. As I think about undergrad in particular, I loved, again, the out of classroom experience. So the clubs, playing club basketball, intramural sports, being in my fraternity, being in different clubs and organizations. That was great. And I also loved some of my classes. Like philosophy was one of my favorite classes, believe it or not, because I got to debate.
Yeah.
And I love debating. I got to see the world and views from very different points of views and experiences, and so I love philosophy as a student. And so I think the connections I've made I have some of my lifelong friends right from college. The least favorite thing, I think for me it was my least favorite thing was balance. I just struggled to balance the work and what I was doing outside of the classroom, right? I was that student who was involved in everything you could think of, while also trying to maintain a solid GPA so I didn't lose my scholarships, right? And so balance was tough for me. I wanted to do everything, right? And so one of my biggest regrets, I would say, is not studying abroad. So I did not study abroad in college. And so not, going to another country and experiencing life through their lens was one of my biggest regrets.
And then how did the LR opportunity come about? Kind of switching gears and talking LR. So you get your doctorate. You were in college 2020 or 2019, 2020. How long until you finished it? And then how did the opportunity with LR come about?
Yeah, I actually defended my dissertation and received my doctorate probably a month before I started LR.
This is quick.
It was very fast turnaround.
Wow.
And I was already in the process of applying. And so I was, at the time I was getting my doctorate, the last year I was getting my doctorate, I was serving as the director for strategic initiatives to a vice president. So I was like her strategy advisor, right?
That's so cool.
Which was a really cool job. And it allowed me to take a step back from the day-to-day students to kind of do strategy work for the division. But also it was a little less time consuming, where I could focus in a lot more on my doctorate.
Yeah.
But as I was closing into the finish line of my doctorate, I was like, man, I miss the day-to-day student interaction. So I need to figure out how to get back into that. And so I started looking, not heavily. And so I saw the LR job available. And then a buddy of mine that works at LR in athletics, he and I worked at Elon together. So we got on the phone and chatted about it. And he was like, man, LR's a special place. You should really look into this job. And so he told me his experience, and he had just started a few months before, but he was really loving his experience. And so, I applied and went through that process, and I defended my doctorate and my dissertation in July and started here in August. And so about a month transition, and the best experience I've had in my career was coming to LR. It's special. It's a special place. It's a small hidden gem. And for LR to be Hickory's really hometown college, right, makes it even more special because of the connections that's there. And so for me, I didn't just join the community of LR and really embedded my life into that space. I've joined a community which is Hickory, right? And that's been really exciting too, to sort of get the best of both worlds in that regard. And so it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's definitely a hidden gem, especially not in just this area of North Carolina, but in North Carolina, when you think of schools, LR is not really at the top of that list for as far as like a public school because it's private. But you also have like the Duke, the Winston, Wake Forest, the UNC Chapel Hill. Like you have all these big. I mean, even in this area, you have Appalachian State University. So it's like it really is a hidden gem. But like you said, the community that surrounds it, I absolutely love Hickory.
Yeah.
I've been here 4 years, going on 4 years, and this place is special. Like the people here are incredible. This is a great community. So I want to ask you, what you said it twice, or the person you talked to said it, and then you said it again. What makes LR so special?
Absolutely. I think the community that is LR is super special. So meaning students at LR don't just come here and get a degree. They truly become change agents in the community, and I think that's so important. So they get a well-rounded experience at LR, meaning they come here, they become experts in their major, but the experience outside of the classroom that they also get to prepare them to be, global citizens is so important. Yeah. And the alumni base is strong here. The faculty, the staff, the community support is so strong, and so most students at LR, what makes it so special is that they get to LR and they get to craft their own journey as an individual, right? And so you can come to LR and say, I want to be a biology major, but I also love theater, so I want to be a part of the theater program, right? Or I want to be an athlete, so I'm going to play my sport, but I still get to join any club and organization that I want to, right? That doesn't happen everywhere. And so I think LR has really crafted an experience that's super special to the individual student experience, right? You get to come in and build that yourself. And the other thing that I love about LR is that you don't fall through the cracks. So meaning as a student, you don't get lost at LR. If you miss a class or two, people are checking in. People are calling. People are saying, where are you? I haven't seen you in a week, right? And so the community is committed, in my opinion, to really invested in the whole student experience, which I don't think you get everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Classes are small. We know you by your name. We communicate, professors and staff, we communicate all the time. And so this LR experience is, for me, and as I talk to alum who have gone out and either gone to grad school or going to the workforce, they say to me all the time, there's no place like LR. Like, my graduate program is nothing like the experience I got at LR, because LR saw me as a person, not as a student. And so we really believe in seeing our folks as a person. Who are you? What's your story? And how do we help really birth this amazing human that's just sitting there waiting for that support and that help? And it's so special to get to do that every day.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of people have this like misconception, or at least this debate of public school, private school. And I think in the sense of having to create an awesome community, being a private school kind of helps you in the sense of the classes aren't as big. Like you said, you get a lot more attention. I mean, I went to public school and one of my classes had like 60 kids in it.
Yes.
And I'm like, that teacher, it took them halfway through the semester to learn my name.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And like, it only happened because I was like one of the top students. So we like talked all the time. But another thing, and this, for me, I had a bad experience in my college education, was the follow-up, right? Like reaching out to teachers, hey, like, I need help. I'm looking for this. Is there, study hours and stuff like that? The follow-up is so huge.
Absolutely.
Did you have a good experience with following up from the student side? And how do you guys have any like policies or procedures or stuff you guys do to follow up on students in your role now?
Absolutely. Yeah. As a student, Coastal is one of my favorite places, and folks know that, where I went to undergrad, and I did have an amazing experience. And part of that was my dean of students, right? He created this sort of image on that campus to where if a student didn't know what to do, who to go to, where to go, they could come to him and he would help them figure out where to go. And he believed in that, and students knew that, right? And so that's what we've done at LR. But I would say LR faculty and staff, again, because our classes are so small, it's really hard not to follow up with students because, again, that's the expectation that we set right up front. And we have faculty and staff that do that really well. But I've also built this, since I've been here the last 2.5 years, of students know if I don't know where to go, what to do, where to get an answer from, I can reach out to Dean Titus, right? And he will get me connected. And I do that not only through email. They can DM me on my work Instagram account. I respond to questions on Instagram. However, right, because I recognize that the generation of today is not the generation that was in college, even when I was in college. And I'm a fairly young guy, but like, email is not the only avenue of communication, right, for students. And so if they DM me and say, hey, when's that event again? I'm going to DM them back and give them the answer, right? Or when do I register for classes? I'm DMing them that, or whatever they need, right? We believe in meeting students where they are, and sometimes that requires us to go to them. And so I'm a mobile dean. Like, I'm out at events. I'm rarely in my office. I try and be out and about, meeting students where they are. And so we've built this culture of care and engagement and follow-up where our students know if I reach out, you're going to get an answer. And if we don't have an answer, you're still going to get a follow-up where we're saying, look, we don't have an answer yet, but we're working on it, right? I mean, and so that's important, right? Because the other thing about the current generation, right, instant gratification is important, right? Because they are used to now AI, or you type something in and you get an answer immediately, right? And so that's what they want. And so we have to be just like that as humans now, because that's important to students. And so, we spend a lot of time understanding what do our students want, what do they need, how do we modernize what we're doing, how do we become flexible in creating those experiences for them. And so they know if you DM me, you're going to get a response.
I think that's important. I think that's so cool, like DMing your dean of students. Like that's, but I think, and this is something I really want to talk about, especially maybe for older educators, it can be a struggle because the new generation is so social media driven. Like, I mean, I know people who like religiously text and call from social media platforms. Like, and even though they have a phone, and it's like, that's how they communicate. When did you kind of learn that? Was it in your roles before LR, or did you kind of see it in LR? Like, when did that sort of become like a trend? And for older educators and people in positions like yours, what is the best, I don't want to say tips and tricks because that's an awful thing, but tips and tricks to kind of accommodating the newer generation?
Yeah, I think there's value in both, right? Because the other thing about education now is that college isn't just your standard 18 to 22-year-old. So there are folks that are coming back to college in their 40s, in their 50s, even in their 60s, right? And so there's space and room for both. And so I don't think we ever want to lose your traditional emails because there's space and value to that, right? Because some of our students are going to walk into companies and organizations that are only email based, right? So we need to still cultivate that into their journey, but that can't be the only way.
100%.
Right. And so I think for me, again, watching my dean as a student, he jumped on Twitter when it became popular and made that. He was probably one of the most followed people at the university on Twitter because he made that really popular because he knew that's where
awesome.
students were.
Yeah.
And so I am all about finding what are the things our students are doing now. How do I learn it and how do I use it? How do I don't lose the traditions of emails and all that, but how do I find additional avenues to communicate with them? Texting, different text apps or Instagram or whatever that may be. And part of that for me is, as I mentioned, I love being a student. So it's about being a student in the game. Students teach me a ton. As I'm teaching and educating them, they're often educating me as well, right? And so it's very normal for me to ask students, what is it that I can do better? Or what do you all need from me to be better at what I'm doing? What's a better communication strategy for me to make sure you're getting the information you need? And so I think, learning that I've never arrived and that I can always continue to learn is critically important.
I once had a mentor tell me that if somebody says they know it all, to walk away.
Run away. Run. It's important to run away.
Because, it really is. It's like life is so ever changing. Like, even, and I don't know if you want to talk about it, but like the tuition that we talked about last time we had a private conversation, it's like that opens up avenues, right? So like for someone to come in and like be like, oh, I know everything. Okay, but you're a private school that now is going to allow a demographic of people who have never had the opportunity to come private. Now it's new people with new attitudes, new perspectives. You kind of always need to be able to adapt. It's not that the same LR students, like the typical student, like there's no typical student. Yeah. Everyone is different, but you're allowing a demographic that was not or did not have the opportunity before to like come through the door. So like that perspective is massive to be able to, doesn't matter who's sitting in front of you, to be able to be like, I'm going to give you the best experience possible. Absolutely. So what do you think on that mindset?
Yeah, so what you're talking about is LR's new tuition-free guarantee program for families making under $100,000 from their income, right? Which is so important at a time where things are so expensive. College is super expensive for a lot of people, and I think oftentimes the misconception is that private colleges are not affordable. Right, and that is something where I think a lot of folks, and that is true in a lot of ways, right? But I think this opportunity is LR saying, look, we are going to lean into who we say we are, and we're going to ensure that college remains accessible and affordable to families that want a small college experience, right? Yeah. Because not everyone want a large college experience, and so we needed to be creative in creating an opportunity that keeps education accessible and affordable while also staying true to who we are as LR, right, and what the Lutheran higher education identity that we hold means. And so I'm super excited about this because you're right, it does allow us to tap into a new demographic, specifically in North Carolina and South Carolina, of families that are making less than $100,000 of a household income. And what that does for our institution is it allows us to continue to build experience where multiple views and identities and values are at the table. Yeah. So our students are going to get to learn from so many different types of people now. It's not going to be them walking into their first job having this new experience with a ton of different people. We are going to give them that now so that they're prepared when they get into their first job. I'm really excited about this because, again, right, it allows LR to stay small. It allows LR to stay values-driven and mission-driven, but it allows us to access, right? It allows us to open up the opportunity for new folks to be able to attain an LR degree. So it's important. And shout out to our new president, Dr. Summer McGee, who has really been championing this opportunity. And so we're super excited to see it happen.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's going to be an incredible opportunity for you guys to continue the greatness
Absolutely.
and the excellence that you guys currently do. Speaking of the president, how has that transition been? I know she is very out in the community. Like literally, just saw her one night at the Miracle on City Walk. Like someone who is very out in the community, wants you guys to get out.
Absolutely.
Like, how important is it to have the person who is the face, the face
Absolutely.
of LR, allowing the staff to kind of have a lot more freedom to be, hey, let's get into the community? How important is that?
It's so important, right? Because this work can't happen in a vacuum, and one person can't do it alone, right? And so the trust that she has in many of us to go out and be a champion for the Lenoir-Rhyne experience, a Lenoir-Rhyne education, is critically important. But, and we look at it all starts at the top, right? And so we see how engaged she is in the community.
Yeah.
We see how active she is in the community. We see how important the LR education experience is to her. So we've all bought into that, right? And it's been so incredibly important for us to have that, right, in a leader, and so I believe the future of LR is bright under her leadership. Because again, she's already making just important change, and the momentum is strong, and her vision is there. She has a bold vision that we're excited to share within the next few months. Our long-term vision for LR. It's bold, it's exciting, and the future is bright, I think, under her leadership. And so it's so important, right, that she is saying, look, this is who I will be, and I'm giving you all agency to go out as well and ensure that people know who we are, not only here in Hickory, but in the region, on the East Coast, wherever that may be. And it's important, right, that we're all speaking the language of an LR education when we're out in the community. And so it's so exciting, man, to see that, and the way that the community has embraced her since she started just a few months ago has been so great and so wonderful, and just so important to the future of LR.
Doesn't that just make your job like way more fun? Like you get because it's like you don't have like the micromanaging. It's like, hey, like I want you to go out there and do what's best for LR, get in the community, be a positive. I mean, not that you weren't before, but like it kind of, in my perspective, it would give me a sense of freedom. It'd give me a sense of like a weight being lifted off my shoulder, like someone who believes in me, believes in LR, believes in the vision of what we can do when we stick to our excellence that we are doing.
Absolutely. It's liberating in the sense that we all get to champion this thing together, right? And I think the burden, right, is lighter when we're all carrying part of the mission, right, with us wherever we go.
Yeah.
And so it's fun. Like I enjoy going out and talking about what LR means to me, but to our students, to this community. Like that's really fun to me, right? And so she's a lot of fun just in her day to day, right? And so it's so cool watching her be the chief. I always tell her the chief cheerleader to this experience, right? It's really fun watching her do it, and then we get to go out and do it as well. And so yeah, it's super fun.
So I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked you about being a student. What is your favorite and least favorite thing about being dean of students?
It's a good question. My favorite thing is the connections I get to build with our students. And I say that because they're so different for every student. Every student that walks into my office, they have a different story. And that's one of the first questions I ask them: what is your story? When they walk in and sit down with me, before we talk about whatever the issue may be or why you're there, who are you as a person? I want to know your story, because then as I get to know your story, I get to craft whatever support you need very differently. 100%. So in one day, 3 students may walk in my office with the same issue, but the outcome may be very different based on their story, right? And so that's one of my favorite things, is getting to, and then watching their journey evolve is so important. From year one, when a lot of them come in as just shy, like unaware, like uninterested, student, to by that 4th year, they're out championing the LR experience in a very different way. So that's important. My least favorite thing is part of the job of a dean of students. Some people see us only as the principal kind of style, right? Because we're the accountability people too, right?
Yeah.
And so some of those conversations I have to have with students is holding them accountable, right? And those aren't always fun moments. Some of them can turn into mentorship opportunities and really great moments, but I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy having to sit down with a student and say, based on your decisions, this is what's going to happen next, right? So I don't always love that piece of it. But some of those conversations turn into very positive moments. And I try and do it from an educational lens and care. Like, I'm here to, make this educational for you to learn from your experience, good or bad. But those aren't always fun moments. And so I would say those are some of those moments that I don't love. But it's part of the job, and I've tried to build it in a way that, again, keeps the students at the core of what I'm doing. So
That's awesome. Have you had a moment similar, maybe not exactly, but similar to the one you had with your dean of students?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I've had a few of those moments in my career, and those are the moments I tell people as a dean of students, our days are never the same, and often we are dealing with something, moving to the next thing, dealing with something, moving to the next thing, and so those moments of reflection doesn't happen often, where I can pause and really say, okay, this is why I'm doing this thing. But that moment when a student comes back and tells me you're the reason I'm still here, or I get that invitation to come to their wedding or to their baby shower, or they come back and they say, hey, can we have lunch? I'm driving through. Those are the moments that mean so much to me, and where I have sat students in my office when they were on the brink of leaving, and found ways to keep them there, or have them write that same why letter that I had to write, right? And so those moments are so important. And again, they don't happen all the time, or maybe they are happening, but sometimes it's years before you know the impact you've made on someone, right? And I don't do it for that reason, right? I do it because I believe in the value of a higher education degree, and I believe in the mission. Where I'm at now, obviously, I believe in the mission of LR. But when those moments happen, man, it's a great pause of like, okay, this is it. I'm doing what I was called to do, right? And so it's so important.
I think it's just so awesome, like how the journey's been. It's like so divine. It's like you literally couldn't. It's kind of like something out of a movie where like you're like, man, I'm over this place. I ain't gonna do this. And then you have a conversation changes. Now you're having those same conversations with people. Like let me ask you, because it's something that's come up a lot with a couple people that I've had on, myself personally. Do you ever deal with like imposter syndrome?
I used to. Early on, because I'm young. I'm a young administrator, right? I don't usually tell my age, but I'll tell you. I'm 31, right?
Super young.
So I'm often walking into rooms as the youngest person. I'm often the youngest person at the table for many high-level conversations and big decisions, right? And so there's a moment that I usually walk in and say, okay, like, will they listen, or will this young voice be? And so early on, that was a big issue. But now I see it as a strength. As a millennial, like, that's a strength, because students can still connect with me in a way that they don't see me as this, like, polished all the time. They see me as someone that say, okay, he still seems fairly young. Like, I can relate to him. But also it's a strength that I do still understand the students and their experience. And so I can bring that voice to the table often, right, as we're making decisions. And so I've turned that imposter syndrome into a strength of mine. And it didn't happen overnight, so definitely early on I felt it a lot. But I've turned it into a strength, right? And I've used it as a tool than really as a burden, and it's been working so far. So. Well, hold on to it.
Listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One thing on a more sensitive topic, mental health. You have people who are coming from different places in the country. Not everyone is born and raised and lived here their whole life in Hickory, North Carolina, or relatively close. How from your perspective, how hard is that transition on students, and what does LR have in place as far as mental health, like procedures or policies?
Absolutely. It's so important. And I would say over the past 7 to 10 years, we've just seen such an increase with mental health concerns on college campuses, right? College is tough for 18 to 22-year-olds, your traditional students and non-traditional students. But that burden, because that's when they're learning who they are. A lot of them come to college and they learn what they like about themselves, what they hate about themselves, right?
Yeah.
But they also get to experience things with autonomy for the first time. Like, I don't have to do what my parents said is the right thing. I get to make my own decisions. A lot of them deal with, religious identity things. Maybe I don't agree with the religion I grew up on or whatever, right? All these things. And so in my role as Dean of Students, I also get the privilege of supervising our counseling center.
Oh, wow.
And so the counseling and wellness center reports to me in our structure at LR. And so I get to see firsthand just the amazing work, one, that they are doing, but it's busy, right? I mean, it's a lot of work, right? And so at LR, for example, we have a few things. So we are, as a small institution, which is not always the case at a lot of small schools, we have our own counseling and wellness center on campus. So
That's awesome.
we have full-time counselors on campus and a full-time physician assistant on campus as well. So for medical and mental health needs, our students can go to one place and get either of those, right? For counseling, they get 12 sessions for free a year. And then we also have a partnership with a counseling group in town where students can go there for free as well. And then we have a virtual option as well called Timely Care. So if students don't want to come to a counseling center, but they just want to meet with a counselor from their home, there's a virtual called telehealth option called Timely Care where they can sign up for free, get on with a counselor, and talk to someone right from their room. It also has a talk now function, so if a student is in crisis in the moment, they can hit this button on the app, on the Timely Care software, and they'll get to talk to someone within 2 to 3 minutes.
Wow.
And so we have invested a ton in wellness resources for our students because it's important. And we know that students aren't able to perform their best in the classroom or engage their best outside of the classroom if they're not mentally well, right, or mentally healthy. And so we see that connection. We've recognized that, and so we've invested a ton in offering them with additional support and resources.
I think it's incredible. I know, obviously, mental health is kind of, like you said, become the forefront because you're dealing with a lot. There's so much happening. Even if you were outside of college, right? Like life is hard.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like life is hard. Now imagine putting those students with deadlines and grades they got to get. They got tuition hanging over their head if they don't get certain grades and this and that. So it can be extremely stressful. Last couple questions for you. Do you have any regrets in your professional career?
Regrets? No, I don't. I believe that every place I've been, every job that I've had, every experience that I've had in all those jobs were preparing me for where I am now, right? And so all of those moments, the hard ones, the good ones, the exciting ones, I think have all been working to craft and kind of cultivate the person that I am today. And so I don't have any regrets. I've been able to work at some amazing places. I've been able to take on some amazing jobs. Some jobs where I was the first to take on those jobs, so I've had to build them from the ground up. And so no regrets at all. Obviously there are moments I look back at a situation that I was in and said, man, if I would have done this thing, the outcome could have been better, or if I would have tried this thing that way. But so I have those moments.
Yeah.
But all those have been teachable moments, and so I don't regret anything in my career because, again, in all of those spaces, I've been able to, I believe, add value to the moment, to invest in students, and to hopefully leave those places a little better than when I got there. So no regrets.
That's so awesome. Do you have any more educational aspirations? Any more doctorates? Anything?
I would like to sometimes. I still would love a law degree. I still would love to find a way to go back to school and get a law degree. What that looks like, I have no idea. But I do. I love school. And I love learning. I love being a student. And so I always think about like, oh, I could go back and get a law degree. And then when I retire, I could do some pro bono work. So I do think about things like that, which it's insane to think about. But as of today, no. But it's always in the back of my mind. Like, I think one of the things that's very popular now that I'm starting to really think about is like micro credentials or like certificates. And so, maybe not going back to get a full degree, but taking a few classes that give me this certification or this credential, right? That could be really cool. So I've started looking into some of those things because I miss being a student, but I don't see a path right now for another degree at this moment.
What is your favorite hidden gem in Hickory, North Carolina?
Oh,
could be like a restaurant, could be something to do. What's your favorite hidden gem?
I'm a foodie, definitely. So I love food. And so I have tried a ton of restaurants. Two things I would say is my favorite hidden gem. Definitely the restaurants that are here. Because and so I can name off a ton that I eat at. I love the new rule. They've moved it to Italian food, which has been really great. I like going there. But another hidden gem that I really love is the Hickory Museum of Arts. Oh. I'm a huge arts person.
Yeah.
I love the arts, and I think HMA is it's special. It's a special place, and they bring some amazing artists to the museum, and they do just such good work. And so that would be another, I would say, hidden gem to folks that may not be in Hickory, but I enjoy the museum as well.
And then how can people, I don't know if, so like usually before we ask the last question, we have a contact. So I don't know if you want to put your information out there. Maybe there's someone who wants to ask you some leadership questions, or how can people get in touch with you? How can people find out about Lenoir-Rhyne University? Like if you have the socials or the website or all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm heavily involved on LinkedIn. So if you just look me up on LinkedIn, I'm heavily involved on LinkedIn. My work Instagram is always a place you can find me. So Dean Titus _LR. I'm heavily involved on Instagram with our students. I'm always posting events and what's happening. And usually, like if there's there's a internet outage or a hurricane like last year, that's usually where I communicate with our students throughout what's going on, keeping them updated. But also for folks that just want to follow what's happening at LR, you can definitely follow me there. LR.edu is where you can find just all things LR. So it leads you to our main page. You can talk to our admissions folks on there. I have a Dean of Students webpage on there. You can learn about the tuition free guarantee program. It's right on the first page. So if you have questions, our admissions and financial aid folks are great to answer those questions about that program. I'm active on all social medias. I check my email a ton. So if you email me, you can find my email all across LR's website. So I'm happy to answer any questions about my journey or LR.
And then the last question we ask every single guest.
Okay.
For someone watching, what is the best piece of life advice you can give them?
Oh, that's a good question. And I've gotten some great advice in my life. What I would say to anyone that's watching, the best piece of advice that I've been given, whatever you do, give it your all, and always remember the why you're doing it. And I'd say that because oftentimes in things that we're doing we can easily get distracted by what's happening around us. Yeah. But if we remember why we're doing things, it centers us, right? It brings us back to the core of what we're doing. And so in anything that I do, I always try and remember and center myself at why I'm doing it. And the other thing that I always try and do is give it all that I have, right? Because I don't ever know what that experience or what the thing that I'm doing, how it impacts others. And so remembering the why and giving it all you have, I say that I think that has never steered me wrong. And, and typically, again, my why is always people. And so I think keeping your why at the center of what you're doing is critically important.
Well, I seriously want to thank you for your time. Shout out to Brandon also who connected us. Great guy. But thank you so much for your time. I know you got a million things going on. One more time, Dr. Harry Titus. I always thought I was. When I saw it, I thought I was going to butcher it so bad. But Titus,
good, yeah.
Just for being an incredible person, incredible work that they're doing at LR. Make sure you go follow him. Like you said, reach out to him if you have any questions on his journey. He is someone who's very experienced and can help you. Also, one more time for Lake Hickory Pub Marina for allowing us to film here. This was another Lifting Love podcast. So most importantly, follow wherever you get your podcast. But most importantly, guys, until next time, lift love, crush hate. We out.